Okay, so moving on. Here we had Mr. Lauren Sachs, and I don't know how many of you knew that his name was actually Mr. Lauren Sachs. I actually had to look it up. But it's hilarious. I love this video clip because it's so silly. But we had some really great responses to this. So Mr. Lawrence Sachs is probably one of the most boring teachers ever. What are some ways that Mr. Lawrence Sachs supports learned helplessness in his classroom? After observing his classroom, explain some ways Mr. Lawrence Sachs can improve his questioning strategy and set the classroom culture of expected conversations. So Mr. Wynn responded, instead of just saying anyone a couple of times and then answering the question himself, he could actually give the students some time to process and respond to the question. Yes, we want that process time. We need that wait time. It is a little bit uncomfortable. I think Mr. Hester said giving them that pressure, it makes them feel pressured to answer and respond. But we want to make sure we give them that wait time because it does give them time to think through in 10, 15 seconds. It can seem like forever when you're waiting for a response, but you usually get a higher quality response after that wait time. So make sure that you're giving wait time. Coach Woodard said he does not have them invested, does not give them the skill sets and time to revise, and he skips modeling and guided practice. He needs to he needs to think about what they say, about what to say, use facts to back up your ideas. And then I agree with this too. He needs to get them invested and make sure that they are, that they are invested enough to respond to the class. And that's part of building relationships. The more that students feel comfortable in a class and they're able to respond, the more that they're going to feel free to respond and even make mistakes. So we want to make sure that we give them an opportunity. And on T-test, that is one of the evaluation criteria when you're thinking about questioning. What kind of questioning strategies are you doing? Are you giving them wait time? Are you expecting a response? And are you getting quality responses? Mr. Checkeye said, is Mr. Lawrence Sachs going to receive an absent verification for Ferris tomorrow? And I thought that was hilarious. So, and Mr. Martin commented he should change the tone of his voice. He should have students retell their own stories and tell the related stories, so connecting to their personal experiences and getting them involved in that way. So a lot of good responses here. I can't read them all. Some of them are really funny, but I think Mr. Chekai gets the humor points there because that was really funny. Okay, so number 2, have students speak in complete sentences. When we encourage our students to use complete sentences, they think in complete thoughts. They link new words to new concepts and are able to practice using academic language structures. And this actually really supports literacy as well. The more that they can think holistically in complete sentences, the more that they can insert new vocabulary or concepts that they don't necessarily know precisely what it means into things that they do know, and it helps them with comprehension. Okay, so think about how powerful this is in terms of literacy and rigor. Creating an environment of expected conversation is intentional and requires you to set the example. Expect a response and expect the response to be stated in complete sentence from every student. So one way that we do that is we give them sentence stems. And sentence stems can be anything that we use that gives them a prompt way to respond. So I predict, I infer, the characters are, I would change, a meaningful connection is, as I've read, I've noticed, a change I've noticed is, da 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 da. So we give them an opportunity to respond in complete sentences by giving them these stems and expecting them, holding them accountable to use these stems. Having an anchor chart like this in your room is priceless because you give them that. It's something that they can look at. It's there every single day, and they internalize it the more that they look at it. That's why it's called an anchor chart, because it anchors the images and the information in their mind, and it helps them with retention. And so we have chart paper available to make anchor charts in the office. If you would like some, please let me know, and that way you can make your own anchor chart that you can have in your classroom that has sentence stems for your students to be able to use. Another powerful idea is to take the powerful 12 and make them into sentence stems. So a lot of these that we saw just a second ago, these are partially the powerful 12. you could create more holistic sentence stems for students to be able to use using these words. So analyze, formulate, compare, infer, da 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 da. These 12 words are words that they're going to be seeing on state assessments as well. So you're giving them a leg up by providing an opportunity for them to use these in the classroom every single day. And again, this is part of the accountability and support. You should be holding them accountable to be using this language every day in their responses in class. So again, we've got the chart paper. You could make a chart if you want. We can make a chart for you. Just something for you to have up in your classroom so that you have an example of what to use, and then you hold the students accountable to using it. So Seidlitz, research indicates that in order for students to use content language accurately in their speaking and writing, they must hear the language multiple times and in multiple contexts. Having students speak in complete sentences provides a means for students to hear content area vocabulary used in context, not only by the teacher, but also by their peers. And so we're going to talk about that here in just a second with structured conversations. So here, many of you wrote some really good sentence stems. So we're going to move on to randomize and rotate. And I think this is a concept that most of y'all already have pretty well handled under, you've got that as a tool already. So we've covered the name wheel. We've got a couple of different wheels that y'all can use. Some of you said popsicle stick. Some of you had an app that you used. I sent that out last week about the Google app for calling on names and for randomizing. So we just want to make sure that we're holding all students accountable to answering questions. And we want to make sure that we're intentional about calling on all students. And I know in some of the faculty meetings or PLCs that we've had, some of y'all were like, I knew you were going to call on me. I knew it. And that's how every student should feel. Every student should be in class anticipating being called on and then being expected and held accountable for responding and being part of the conversation that or discussion that you're having in class. So know your students. One way to successfully get responses from all students, in addition to allowing them to ask for help, is also to know their capabilities and knowledge base. So if you have a student that you know struggles, if you have a student who functions on a low cognitive level, don't ask them the complex questions that you know that they can't answer. Ask them the simple questions that you know that they can answer. By doing this, you build up their confidence, you build up that safety net in the classroom, and you also build up their capability of being able to answer questions. So I know I've had some students who were really low cognitively or really low functioning cognitively, and when I would ask them a question and they would respond it, correctly, they would be like, yes, giving them a little bit of, pumping them up, giving them confidence, making them feel like they are capable of doing it. And when you do value them and you do give them that credit and you're helping them, but give them that support, they'll actually produce more than you think that they're capable of doing. So it builds their capacity to take risks as well. And we want our students to take risks. It's okay to be wrong. And I used to always tell my class, here's the place for you to make mistakes, because here we can help and support and fix it. And then we can go out in the world and do much better. So many ways to randomize and rotate. Y'all already know this. A lot of you have great strategies already. If you need more strategies, look at teachers like Mrs. Edwards, Mrs. Bates, Mrs. Gonzalez. We've got a lot of good teachers who use those instructional strategies on a daily basis. So there are a lot of ways to glean some really good ideas. Number 4, use total response signals to check for understanding. And I've seen a lot of y'all do this in the class too. So how many more minutes do you need? Put up 2 fingers if you need to, put up 3, put up 4 if you need more. Stand up when you're done. When we were taking a quiz in class, again, that was on paper, but you could also do it with computers. So close your lid when you're done. I would always tell kids, put your pencil on your paper when you're done, and that way I know you're finished. Give me a signal. Everybody got it? Thumbs up, middle, thumbs down. Just a way for you to do a really quick check of the understanding, comprehension, and then making it a quick process that you can have in class. So here are multiple ideas. If you Google up total response signals, you'll find a lot of information. So here was our scenario. Mrs. Ferdinand leads a very disciplined class. She has a seating chart and always has a tendency to seat her favorite students close to her desk and the troublemakers at the back of the classroom. When questioning students, she only calls on her favorite students. If she does call on someone else, she demeans them by asking them questions she knows that they can't possibly answer. And so we had a really good responses to this prompt. Mrs. Blakely said, if you never call on a student, what is his or her motivation to pay attention in class? If you have poor relationships with a student, you should try to strengthen it. Otherwise, the student will never learn anything in your class. So, great idea here. We don't want students to feel like they don't belong, and we want to make sure that students are held accountable. We don't have favorites. We don't categorize our students. We need to make sure that we're treating everybody equitably in class. And we want to make sure, again, that we're calling on all of our students, not just our favorite students or the students that we know that can answer. We want to make sure that we're holding everybody accountable. Coach Eakin said, if a student does not think that you're going to call on them, they will not be engaged. By playing favorites, you're alienating and excluding a good portion of class. It is natural to have affinity for certain students, however, you can avoid playing favorites, and that is so true. I know when kids used to be like, I'm your favorite student. Who's your favorite student? I would always tell them, I don't have a favorite student. Everybody's my favorite student. Now, was that actually true? Not really, but that made everybody feel like they were valued, and I would be like, you're my favorite student. You're my favorite student. Everybody's my favorite student, and try to treat everybody equitably, so that way they feel safe in your class. Mr. Lewis said, on a final note, students really dislike a teacher who has favorite, and that adds to discipline issues. And that is so true. If students know you don't like them or they feel like you don't like them, then they're not going to respect your class, or they're going to feel like they don't belong in the class. Mrs. Preston said, I change my seating chart every 6 weeks, and my goal is to make sure everyone sits at a different table with a different group of people. And this is a strategy that I actually used to use myself. So that way you prevent kids from sitting in one area of the classroom all year long. You also engage them more when they're in proximity. That's one of the reasons why being in the power zone is so important. So don't let your students kind of alienate themselves by sitting in the back of the classroom. If you have a seating chart and you're expecting them to sit in certain places, change it up. Give them an opportunity to sit with different people. Make it a classroom where everybody feels welcome and everybody has a place. Mrs. Prince responded, students who know they will never be called on may decide there's no need for them to have an answer, and they won't. So another good point too here, that if they know they're never going to be called on, they're never going to be prepared to answer, and they become completely disengaged. Coach Nunez said, oh, no, that was a different one. Okay, so I think I got all of the responses. So thank you for your thorough responses here. Oh, and then Coach Nunez said, you never want to give a student a question you know that they are incapable of answering. And again, we want to make sure that we're pumping up our students, we're giving them confidence, we are focusing on their strengths and not their weaknesses. Okay, number 5, use visuals and vocabulary strategies that support your objectives. So visual aids are extremely important. You can use pictures, movie clips, drawings, etc., etc. Leave these up as anchor charts on your walls. So if you have something that you've given the students and you have a visual that's going to help them remember and they're going to support the learning, leave it up on the wall. If you haven't walked by Mrs. Gonzalez's room, she's got a gazillion visuals on her wall, and you may think that it's a little bit overwhelming, but students are going to remember that. They're going to remember seeing those things on the wall. So think about when you were a student, what are some teachers, classrooms that you can remember, what was up on that wall, and try to remember what it looked like. And that's what our students do. They come in, if they see white walls, there's nothing for them to focus on to help support learning. So you need to have anchor charts, you can have pictures, you can have other things up on there that help them with the learning. I know that Mrs. Blakely and Mr. Whitehead both have students draw out pictures to help them with vocabulary words. That's another way that you can use visuals, is to help them use that strategy for them to be able to demonstrate what they've learned. So you watched this clip and it says, how does the main character teach his colleagues what he wants them to learn? And it was partially visual. So if you noticed, if you watched the whole thing, it was actually really holistic and comprehensive. So he asked them a question initially, he got their thoughts on it, then he told them about a different way to they were solving a problem. He showed them a different way. He showed them a tool that they could use. He had one for everybody to use. And then afterwards, they were going to watch a movie clip about it so that way they could learn more about it. So again, the importance of visuals cannot be understated because we process that information so much more quickly. So pictures and drawings, a simple Google search for images will produce masses of pictures.